Hey, everybody, want to welcome you to the AGTV interview series. Everybody say hello to Pat Dixon.
Everybody say hello to me. Hey, how are you, Adam?
Yeah, I know that's a real lame intro, right?
I
It's
like
funny.
it.
The first time I did it with, Adam Hughes from Hughesy Entertainment. You ever watched this channel before?
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan.
Dude from Ireland. Yeah, he's really cool. He came on my channel and I said that not realizing that the name of his show is Hello, It's Hughesy. So when I said say hello, it just sounded kind of stupid the way I introduced him. Anyways, apologies for that lame introduction, but
No, never apologize for a lame introduction.
yeah, I
There are
know,
no
right?
lame introductions, right?
Not to mention the apology shit's getting out of control, especially now.
how
But
how is that? It's just like for some reason, you just always want to that's a person that I feel is concerned, about how they're coming off or something. Perhaps you're young though. How old are you?
me, nah, 36. I've been around the block a couple times. I'm just glad I'm not one of these. I feel bad for these kids, this generation. I mean, these kids today, they don't fucking respect anything. But
No, they don't.
the first question I was going to ask you. So, is there a lot of crime in New York City?
Sure. Yeah, it's a big city, a lot of crime. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of and there's the new gun laws that the governor has got into effect. It's all concerned with the Supreme Court changed the law, but
You talk about the Supreme Court ruling in New York State.
yeah, exactly. And then that changed it everywhere. But also, she now says well, you can't have guns here. So anyway, it's not a gun thing lately. It's more of a stabbing thing. A lot of random stabbings, people just getting cut and stabbed. Some of them to death, some of them not. And there was, of course, we had our Lower East Side food fight the other day, which wasn't really so much a food fight as just a total rampage. In one of these artisan French fry places, couldn't happen to a nicer place.
Are you talking about a McDonald's freak out?
No, I'm talking about Lower East Side, some kind of gourmet fries with little cups, and they were mad because they couldn't get extra sauce for nothing. It was like $1.75 a cup for this little artisan. They have a variety of the whatever kind of mushroom sauce and all this bullshit. So yeah, they freaked out, man. They didn't want to pay the $1.75 or $4.25 for three, and they lost it and started throwing shit. And it's all on video and stuff. That's on the most recent episode, which you can see at Locals.
Oh, that seems reasonable. I mean, I think I remember hearing about that, but I sometimes will cover McDonald's style freakouts on my channel, and it's always good, free, easy content, especially reaction wise.
Yeah, well, I bet and McDonald's is one thing. This place is I mean, it's going to be bullshit when you go in there. It says anything with artisan in it, is going to be super stupid expensive for no reason.
They kind of opened the floodgates once they Starbucks just started letting heroin addicts shoot up in the bathroom.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you can't just open up your bathroom if you have a business for anybody in the world to take a shit there and wash their balls. I mean, that's what happened to the post office. I mean, it turned into a whore bath for a bunch of hobos.
Oh yeah,
it's a hobo whore bath at the public library at any given moment. You've seen that, I'm sure.
I mean, is there any other use for a public library in 2022 other than for homeless people to go shoot up and take a shit?
Why don't they just let them live there? Why don't they turn all the libraries into homeless housing and let them get their education? And they get 4 years to be there, and then you boot them out. And hey, maybe they'll be better off. Maybe they won't. Maybe a few of them will get killed. It can only be good results.
Yeah, give them a liberal arts education. It's fucking meaningless, anyways, right?
Well, it has a lot of meaning in terms of shaping the culture. It has very little meaning in terms of getting a job.
Yeah,
that is worthwhile, in my opinion. We had a guy here get stabbed to death while he was robbing a place. He was beating a guy up because he was trying to charge this lady for her potato chips. And she didn't have the money on her EBT card. So this guy was beating this guy's ass. And so the guy cut him and he died. The robber died. And they're charging this guy with murder for defending himself.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's just the city is insane.
I don't know if you'd recently seen a video Anthony posted of a guy robbing a bank, and the bank floor was all white, and the guy got shot in the neck and he bled to death all over the bank floor. I was always wondering what the backstory was with that, because that was insane. There's some real graphic shit that I don't know how those videos get.
He wanted the money, and he was unable to get away with it, I guess, right? It was the robber who got shot, right?
Was that in New York? Do you know?
I don't think so. No, I don't think that was in New York. I don't know where that was, but I don't think it was New York. I saw another one that Andrea tweeted with a guy who got stuck in the neck, and just not a lot of blood at first, but a little blood, and then it just gushes.
I saw the one with the kids that were fighting, and there was the Asian kid who I think was it the Asian guy that stabbed him, stabbed the black dude or whatever.
You know what? The guy was an indeterminate race as far as I'm concerned. He was light brown and curly haired. He was big. I didn't notice that the guy was Asian, but that makes whatever. I mean, Asian, whatever. It doesn't really matter so much. The guy got stuck. Just like it was so fast. The guy was so good at it that he just like, or lucky, he just caught him right in the neck, and then he just drops. It's one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen. And these videos every single fucking day, like the little black kids that are calling the cops bitch and hitting them and stuff like that. Just like these kids are like fucking barely toddlers.
It's really sad too, because you think no matter what, even if their parents have a low opinion of police, or if they, if they have whatever, a little bit of a left-wing outlook on that sort of thing, you think you'd want to maybe teach your kids to just like, maybe it's better to just not like maybe don't taunt the cops,
Yeah, why start trouble, right?
Yeah,
why start trouble? But
exactly.
no, that's not.
Yeah,
it's hard to get a kid to understand these subtleties of resisting arrest, I guess.
yeah, that's true. I was going to ask you a little bit of a more serious. I was joking around before about the whole, is there crime in New York City? Obviously, but what I wanted to know was how has crime gotten worse since the pandemic in New York?
Well, the laws have changed, so it's harder for the cops to do anything. So not so much the pandemic as the pandemic just. It did a lot. I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's the bail reform that they enacted that was set to take effect, and it did. Bail reform is basically you don't have to pay bail anymore for most crimes. You just get right back out, and so you don't have any cooling off period in jail at all. You don't have any sort of. There's just no consequences if you don't go someplace for the crime.
So they just release you on your own recognizance and give you a court date, like it's a.
Yep. You get a desk appearance ticket. Yeah.
And this just isn't for the first offense. This is like for everything you're saying?
Sometimes they call it a disappearance ticket. Yeah, it can be fourth offense. There was one lady, and the reason they kind of like this happened right away. Some woman kept slapping Jews and calling them Jews and making reference to them being Jews and slapping them and a lot of profane language and shit and slapping them. Every time she'd get out, she'd slap another Jew.
Get a life, Jews.
So this Jew slapper, like 4 times in a row, the Post starts to cover this, and people are like, you know what, this bail reform kind of sucks, especially if you're a Jew.
I better watch out. I better stay away from New York if there's all these Jew slappers running around.
Oh man, yeah, it's not. You would think with the Jewish population, like roughly the size of Israel, they would be okay, right?
I heard that there are more Jews in New York than there are in all of Israel, or maybe it was on all of Jerusalem.
Yeah, I can never really remember exactly what it is, but it essentially is just saying it's crawling with them.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of Jews in Brooklyn. There's a lot of Jews in Manhattan. There's a lot of Jews everywhere in New York, and that's fine. Hey, look, Jews built New York, for Christ's sake, in many ways. So. Hey, Jews welcome here is what you would think, right? But it's also Jew hate crime is not really so much a problem because, even if you don't consider yourself white, you're certainly white adjacent, just like the Asians are. So, and certain Hispanics are considered white adjacent. We've heard of white Hispanics, going back to, what's his name with the hoodie, Trayvon.
Jews just need to become trannies if they want to get special victim status. Maybe that would work.
That would help. That would really help. Yeah. And at least be gay.
Well, it seems like it's the easiest thing in the world to just call yourself a tranny. I mean, what do they do? Do they actually check?
It's sort of like one of those religious exemptions that the cops tried to get when they didn't want to take the COVID vaccine. They check into it as hard as they need to get you to do what you are supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So, like, normally if you tell people, like, this is my religion, they believe you. But in the case of NYPD, if you're trying to evade a vaccine, it's like, oh, we don't really care if you grew up in this faith and that they don't want you to do this. Fuck you, you're getting the vaccine, right? So I think the biggest problem now in the whole world is the multiple-tiered justice system. It applies unevenly everywhere. That's the biggest problem, in my opinion, because everything is so subjective. It's all a matter of opinion. It's all a matter of what's popular and what's not. It all goes on the wind like that. And so the media has too much influence on the news.
I think
on the law, rather.
Yeah, and once it got away from providing everyone equal protection under the law, it almost reminds me back to what Trump said. I think this might have been in 2016 campaign where he said, "I'm all for people having equal rights. I don't believe in giving certain groups of people extra rights."
Yeah. You wouldn't think that ever have to actually be said, right? You wouldn't think that'd be part of a platform, let alone a fascist platform, let alone, some kind of a dangerous platform that wants the law to treat everybody the same. That's why it's the law. That's why we have a law to treat everybody the same. So it's fucked. It's totally fucked. And the beginning of that was hate crime. legislation, in my opinion. I mean, like, if you start making it a more serious crime because you, apparently hate somebody, or because of some shit that's on your computer, or because of something that you say. Sometimes you call somebody a faggot when you hit them or something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're, like, trying to perpetrate a hate crime against an actual gay person.
I wish most people understood that the use of the word faggot and gay, it just means when something is bad. You know what I mean? It's like back in the day, like an old 90s saying, don't be a fucking faggot. It had this much to do with homosexuality, really.
Well, you know something? Everybody understands that.
Yeah.
And anybody who pretends not to is a disingenuous faggot.
Or they're just too young to remember a time when you could actually basically have freedom of speech.
Don't you think they intuitively know, though? Don't you think they know? They think that
I would hope so.
Young people always think that old people are just ignorant, old fucking fossil idiots, who don't understand how, oh my God, what you said was offensive. No, you don't understand. It's like, it wasn't offensive and it still isn't. And that's the way they do, man. Every generation, you keep educating them. And what's the word for it? When you completely brainwash somebody in school, keep
indoctrinate.
Doing that. Indoctrinating them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what's going on. School's more about indoctrination than it is learning by far.
That definitely seems that way. I mean, when I think about it's like that Paul Simon song, when I think about all the crap I learned in high school, I think that I probably learned more listening to Opie and Anthony. I learned more about life between watching The Sopranos and listening to O&A, because I got to give Anthony credit, man. He opened my eyes to a lot of shit. I used to be a really liberal person, and I was one of those stupid people, like when Trayvon, and this is kind of embarrassing, but back in 2013, I was very liberal. And I remember when Trayvon Martin not when Trayvon Martin got killed, but I remember back in 2013 when when George Zimmerman got off, and I was so upset about it. And I was posting on Facebook, like shit posting. And it was just the gayest shit ever. I remember it got to a point where my friend's mother, who was she was this liberal woman who agreed with me, eventually like wrote me a message on Facebook and was like, you need to stop posting about this. You need to stop worrying about this. This doesn't have anything to do with you. It's not your life. Like, why are you so upset about this? And I gave this gay response where it was like, you don't understand. Like, imagine if it were your child, like just that level of self-righteousness. It took me a while to see the error of that. And I got to say, listening to Opie and Anthony, I started listening, and I eventually saw the error of my ways. I mean, we all have to turn 30 and grow up sometime. But when I listened to Opie and Anthony, when I started getting into that show, I was late to the party to appreciating them, but it might have been around 2009. Between then and like 2012, I started listening to it more. And I used to identify with Opie's politics more.
Well, that's because you're an idiot.
And actually think to myself, I remember I used to just think like, Anthony's funny as fuck, but man, like he's so right wing and he's so conservative. The more I listened to him, the more I started to, you know what I mean? He started to change my mind about a lot of things.
Look, good for you for having a changeable mind. I mean, that's like a big part of it. He changed my mind about a lot of things too. Anthony is a guy who, he knows exactly what he thinks, and it's not that hard, to sort of like have that rub off on you. When if I didn't have compound media during the Trump era, man, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah,
I would have been so out of place. It's such it's such an important thing to have some friends and some people around you, coworkers, colleagues who get it and know that what's going on, and to have this place to broadcast from and to get that out to people who feel similar, people who feel the same. But it crystallized, is what I'll say, between Trump, Ant, and Gavin McInnes. Those were my fucking. They all added up to a North Star.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, that was a good segue into my next question, which is going to be generally, what was it like day in, day out? What was it like being an employee and working at Compound Media?
Well, I mean, it was just once a week. I would get my shit together and get on the train, make it up to Compound just in time to get in front of camera, do the show. And I never felt more comfortable, besides being on stage, than I do behind a desk talking about the stuff that I've been talking about, crime and everything else. I mean, I've done a bunch of shows there. It was it felt different then than it does now, and then it felt different in the middle. It felt different at different stages. At first, I didn't really know that much about Cumia. because I had never had. You say you're late to the party on O&A. I'm even later. So most of my knowledge about Ant was about him solo, and I was like, this fucking guy is fucking hilarious. And and even then, it took a while to like really soak in exactly like this is one of the most influential guys in the history of comedy. He's like changed the way people approach comedy. He's made stars out of people. He has elevated others to another, level that they never would have been. Snowflake, libtard, wokey, he's wokey. And you can tick them off. There's dozens, I suppose. It's pretty cool, And so to be a part of that in another stage is really an honor, to say the least. But day to day, there was a time when it was just like, man, the studio is kind of like, I don't want to say just fully open, but like if you worked there, you had some access to the studio and you could go in and if you had somebody working a board for you, which I did, Asian me, Ryan Katsu Rivera, who's over at Censored now, we would go in there and fucking play music and do shows and record shit. And we had that kind of access and that kind of, it was, there for a period. It was just very, very cool to have the run of the place and get to, it was like a creative thing. It was awesome. It never got bad, It was never bad ever. It was only good. I only had good times there, really. I mean, I mean, I'm not there anymore, obviously, so it's kind of like, well, that was good,
Yeah, well, it doesn't.
No bad things to say.
It definitely doesn't sound like it was a stressful work environment.
I mean, it could be sometimes, I guess. I mean, it depends on what stresses you out, but I didn't find it to be. Look, I always am. I always enjoy being live and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've done so much live comedy leading up to this that it wasn't a problem. And I'd like been in front of camera a lot too, doing like Best Week Ever and like all these like list shows on E and shit like that. I mean, I probably did a dozen of those. Oh, just other little shit like that. So I mean, it was a natural environment for me, and I always liked being live, and I always liked the immediacy of that was really cool.
Yeah. Have you ever, it's funny you mentioned the E shows. Have you ever bumped into Hal Sparks on that circuit?
No, never.
Actor. It's funny. The reason I bring him up is because he's actually very close friends with my nemesis, Stuttering John. And he's
Hal Sparks is a good friend with Stuttering John.
He is. You know who Hal Sparks is, obviously, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't hear much about him anymore, but.
No, I think he was a lot more active in like the early 2000s. He was on that show Queer as Folk, and I guess he was in Dude, Where's My Car? And I mean, he's had an interesting enough career, but he's somebody, I think it kind of perplexes people that he's someone that is stuck by Stuttering John so much. But I remember you saying you didn't know too much about the Stuttering John lore. Were you there when he was in studio at Compound and he drank all the beer? Did you hear that story?
I don't think I was in the building. I don't know that, you know what? That one might've gotten by me. The only time I ever saw or was in close proximity to Stuttering John, I was standing there talking to Ant. I've been trying to talk to Ant about something for days. And, Ant's in and out. It's sometimes hard to catch him and get a moment where it's like he's receptive to a conversation and stuff. He's still the boss, I mean, he's very cool, but he's still the fucking boss. So you're like, I'm talking to him, and then, hey, fucking, that conversation's over, man. I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, he really is a character. And it's interesting because it's the fact that you don't know that much about his background and about the lore, I think is interesting because I always am interested. I'm always curious to get the perspective of an outsider, because I think that some of us, who are these podcasts has been chronicling Stuttering John and his crimes and his just overall idiocy for quite some time. So it's kind of funny if you're somebody where you're initiated and you know all the, you know what I mean? You know, all the little secrets, all the little funny references and stuff like that. Sure. But for somebody that doesn't know it, it's, you know what I mean? Because after a while you get tunnel vision when you're just
like
focusing.
Somebody The Godfather for the first time or something, right? Or
right.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. And you go like, see? And you want to see that response. And it confirms what you're thinking and everything too sometimes. And it also maybe gives you a new perspective. But I'm catching up on Who Are These Podcasts and the Stuttering John stuff. I was watching some of it 2 days ago. and it's wild that I mean, the guy is really an interesting study, isn't he? He's like so, just organically whatever it is that he is. I mean, like, I don't want to put too many adjectives on the guy, but he seems to bump up against social conventions quite a bit, and sort of cross lines, completely unaware of it. He seems like he's got like a bubble around him that like just insulates him from self-awareness or something, and how he relates to the world. And watching a guy like that blunder through everything, it's sort of like a real low IQ version of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I've never heard that theory, but I think that makes a lot of sense. It really is just a man yelling at clouds, but with like a complete utter lack of self-awareness. Because at least Larry David's a fucking self-centered. He's a jerk. He's a self-centered jerk, but he's intelligent. Like you know what I mean? He points out a lot of the stupidity and things, but with Stuttering John, it's like everything just goes way over his head. That's interesting too. And it's funny because if you don't know him that well, it sounds to me like it's pretty obvious. Like, you know what I mean? For somebody that doesn't know that much about the lore, you seem like you got him pegged pretty good, Well,
like, I don't know, whatever. I mean, it's an amusing thing on the whole. I mean, he used to be he's had a downfall, hasn't he? I mean, like he was he hit some heights. I mean, look, I've never been the announcer on the Tonight Show. Not for one day was I considered for that position. I've never been on Howard Stern's show, which goes to so many homes or radios or whatever the fuck it goes to. And I mean, the guy's like, he should be some kind of celebrity, right? But it seems like most of the people who are into watching him or listening to him are, I mean, they all seem to be haters and trolls. Yeah. I mean, he has a troll audience, and that's fucking fascinating. It's not that different from Stern when you think about it, because he had the love to hate audience, and they both, like he had people who liked him and they wanted to hear what he would say next, and he had people who hated him and wanted to hear what he'd say next. And I don't know that anybody wants to hear what Stuttering John says next, but you still can't. It's still interesting to participate in.
I do a show making fun of him, and it's so excruciating. It's like, I do enjoy laughing at him, but it's fucking tedious actually, like combing through his shows to find 20 minutes that's good to make fun of. The problem is he does a political show, so most of the time it's other people talking, and there's nothing funny. Usually every now and then he'll have somebody on there that's kind of an idiot, and they can be fun to laugh at too, but usually it's just John kind of making a fool of himself, and then he'll let his guest talk, and he'll literally just sit. It's like if you were talking and the whole time you were talking, I just sat there and and I'm looking at my computer like, how fucking rude is that? You know what I mean? You wouldn't want to come back on my show if I literally was. You just got the sense that I wasn't paying attention to what you're saying. So he's just a guy that, he's one of those people that reposts memes on Facebook. He doesn't really he's not good at formulating thoughts and arguments of his own. And I mean, that's okay. Not everybody has to be a political genius. Not everybody has to comment on this stuff and be an expert at it. But to do a political show, do some research.
I was about to say, that was the way I was going to end the sentence as well. Sorry to try to break in, but if you're going to do a political show, it does help to know something about it. And the guy is not even, from what I can tell, I mean, he's a liberal guy. I mean, let's just say it. He's a leftist sort of dude. And so the beauty of that point of view is you really don't have to know anything. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to analyze anything. You don't have to think ever. They tell you exactly what your opinion is, and that's it. And, any deviation, what you have to be able to learn is how not to deviate from it. And it helps if you can sort of like take it up a notch. Punch up their point of view and find some racism that has not been pointed out yet or something like that. If you can find some new racism, oh my God, you're a leftist genius.
It's funny because the point that you speak to, I remember when Trey Parker and Matt Stone were criticizing Michael Moore, they used this term. It was a really, really great term where they said, Michael Moore is trying to find truth where there isn't any. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to let's invent some new racism because, it's like it's a product. It's like the racism outrage shit. It's just like a product to be sold.
Well, you're talking about the Talib Starks from Safe Space. The term that he used for that, it was the racial
The soft bigotry of low expectations?
Oh, no. It was the racial grievance industry is what he called it. The racial grievance industry. And that's exactly what it is. And I mean, like, without it, you wouldn't have Al Sharpton and you wouldn't have all the, since when is activist a fucking way to make a living, you know? I mean, that's a spare time kind of thing at best. But they don't really see it that way. I mean, there's paid activists, and I don't know who's paying them. I guess, we could take them off, and people call it a conspiracy theory or whatever. But, I mean, somebody's getting paid. These guys are professional activists. And, Sharpton gets paid by, he's on a case by case. He's going out there beating the bushes. Anytime he sees somebody on the news and there's some kind of like, oh, yeah, that's a black thing. I mean, it's very obvious what a full of shit huckster kind of guy he is. And hey, that's the way they make
He's the worst.
If they don't point out this shit, they don't make any money. And they're greedy. They don't want a little money. They want a lot. They don't want to get a settlement and move. I mean, they want all the money, all the power. And you have politicians now doing the same thing. They've caught on. I mean, maybe he caught on to the politicians. Like, I don't even have to have office to do this. I can do this without being in office. All I need is... And he calls himself a reverend. I don't know where his church is, right? But
he probably used to be a reverend like 30 years ago. Maybe for tax purposes. That's what it sounds like. He has some bullshit
or some shit. Like,
yeah, it's like some bullshit phony church. Like it's like a shell corp.
It's Bob Levy, I guess, is a guy who is the only one of the few. Maybe the only comic I know that like is the Reverend Bob Levy, and so like I don't know if that helps him in terms of, it seems to grant you some kind of, it's like calling somebody doctor or something or whatever. It gives you some kind of prestige,
sure,
attention to your opinion or whatever. Like, and I'm not saying that about Levy. I'm sure I know that for Levy it's a completely different deal. He's not trying to be Al Sharpton. But
by the way, though, speaking of doctors, I wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Steve. I understand you're friends with Dr. Steve too.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Steve's he's a good dude. He's really one of the good ones. I'm actually going to be interviewing him soon. I'm going to be talking to Eric Nagel.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
You're going to talk to E-Rock?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Well, I'm an Opie and Anthony fan, and I love the show that he does. He does a show where he talks about a lot of it's like a lot of nerd shit, but he'll talk about fast food. He talks about a lot of different types of stuff.
You're an Eric Nagel fan. I said that wrong. You're the Eric Nagel fan.
Gotcha.
Well, have you ever heard his appearance on WATP? He was on there way before I was ever on the show. I think it was 2019. He did an episode where, do you know who Scott and Todd are? You got to know them, right? So E-Rock worked on the Scott and Todd show. This was years ago before he worked for Opie and Anthony, and Opie and Anthony made fun of them. They used to do, what Jocktober is?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. They would make fun of,
They probably did more. I think some of the Scott and Todd Jocktobers were some of the best ever. And I remember listening to them. They were still doing it around 2013, but Eric was he was on staff there, so sometimes he'd have a lot of insight and he'd have stories. But Who Are These Podcasts did an episode about Todd Pettengill, because Todd Pettengill, who's the Todd from Scott and Todd, he did his own podcast, and E-Rock went on to make fun of it, and he had a bunch of audio and stuff. I don't know why. For some reason, E-Rock had all this insider access, but
he's a great get, and on that topic, he's the get.
Yeah. Well, it was great on that episode, but I mean, I don't know E-Rock personally, but I always thought he was interesting on that show. I love the segment where him and Roland went to Opie's barbecue. And this is some Opie and Anthony fanboy shit, but he went to Opie's house and they were making fun of like Opie's steak, and it was like a whole bit. It was a funny thing, but so you're not a fan of E-Rock?
Hey, you know what? I worked there for a while at Compound before E-Rock came along, and I, honest to God, I'm not really sure what he did, so I can't really be too critical in that, he's working on a level that apparently is completely out of view to anybody who just does a show there a couple of times a week, and it would probably be unfair to criticize anything about him in terms of that. I didn't have any problem with him personally. There might have been a time or two when he wasn't altogether forthcoming about a thing or two, but I mean, that's part of management, I guess, and I don't really fault him for anything other than he has a show on a network that he also is a manager of. Some people might call that a conflict of interest. I don't know. it's not really up for me to say. I mean, hell, I'm a humble, broadcaster, podcaster, whatever the fuck it is I am. I'm not really in show business, and he's, and he's Eric Nagel. He's been doing this a long time. So I'm like I said, I'm not really very knowledgeable about anything that he ever did there.
Speaking as a big Opie and Anthony fan, I'm looking forward to talking with him because I'm definitely going to ask him about a lot of Opie and Anthony shit. And that's something that I'm really interested in. So I'm excited to talk to him. And I appreciate the fact that he's coming on. I didn't think that he was going to agree. Going forward, I want to do more interviews and I want to talk to more people. I do a show by myself, and after a while it gets kind of boring. So it is nice to hear other people's perspectives. And it's cool to get to talk to people who, are on some of my favorite networks and do some
Absolutely.
of the podcasts I like. Karl from WATP is a fucking riot too. I hope you go on that show more.
That guy is a real pro. He's a real pro. I mean, he's a real pro who's not, he's his own guy pro. He's not working for anybody. And I think he's got a great radio persona, great radio voice, great pacing on the show, great. And he's worked for all this shit. He's, it's pretty extraordinary, really. I like WATP.
WATP. Yeah, it's funny because the skills, Karl, he comes from a corporate sort of background where he was in marketing for years and he seemed like he was successful. I guess he owned a digital marketing firm. And I think a lot of those skills that you have that you need to succeed in the corporate world, I think those skills have really served Karl well.
Maybe they have. Yeah. I would think they translate. He was obviously very good at marketing if that's what he was doing. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, marketing's got to be a big part of doing your own show too. But no, I'm definitely impressed with the way Karl runs his show. It's entertaining, and that show's gotten me through a lot of rough times too, just with the pandemic and just being an Uber driver. I was out in Vegas driving for Uber, and just all day it was the only thing keeping me sane was listening to that show.
Uber driver in Vegas. Oh shit.
It was crazy, dude. I've kicked some prostitutes and drug addicts out of my car. Anytime I'd have like a crazy OD and bitch, like remember one time I'd get a call. It was usually Planet Hollywood. I'd get a lot of the weirdos, even though that was a good place to pick people up. Planet Hollywood Casino on the Strip. So there'd be like a guy, and the guy had a good rating or whatever. Then the girlfriend would come out and it would be like a Mia Wallace type situation where he's like, I think that the dude's coming out, and then he just dumps this girl in my backseat. Okay, get her home safe. And she's like, yeah, dude, fuck you. You drive me home. And I'm just like, get the fuck out of my car. Get out of my car. Goodbye. And then they're like, well, what's your problem? Why? How come? And I just hold up a mirror and I go, this is why. Because of you, and it's not worth it. It's just, that was the one thing that bothered me about Uber is you always had to worry about some crazy he said, she said story. You know what I mean? For nothing. Somebody can get you, they could just make up a story and
you're alone in a car an awful lot. Yeah. And that's why having that camera in there has become so important, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You really don't want to not have one if you're an Uber driver. It's
no, definitely
it's pretty
not.
Insane.
Keep the camera going all the time.
Yeah. So I drove in Boston. I drove in Vegas. Vegas is a fucking dumb, man. That was an interesting city. I really liked living out there. I loved playing poker, the casinos, but man, crackheads everywhere. You can't fucking pump your gas without a crackhead coming up to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Strip is this, amazing place, right? And then you have the stuff that's not the Strip, and then you have, I like the old downtown too. I found that people, it's weird, man, because I was there the tail end of when there was any sort of like COVID concerns going on. I think, of course, I mean, they're not letting go of that, but they kind of treated you one way on the Strip, and then downtown they were a lot more strict. They acted like dicks a lot more because these are the lower classes, right? These are people paying less for hotels. These are the guests that are, they're maybe on a budget. Maybe they just like the way it feels down there better. But for whatever reason, they were a lot more strict downtown than they were on the Strip.
Yeah, when you're in Vegas, you'll see the Metro PD up there downtown definitely on Fremont Street more than you'll ever see them. I mean, they're down on the Strip, but they have a much more aggressive presence in the downtown area. And the downtown areas, it's pretty fucking seedy. I mean, you get one block off the Fremont Street experience. North Vegas was really fucking scary. I stayed the fuck out of North Vegas when I lived there.
Oh, yeah.
The neighborhood I lived in wasn't too much better, but I never saw any fucking cops in my neighborhood ever. Like, never.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like Vegas a lot. I enjoyed the shows there. We did Comedians of Compound there. It was fucking awesome.
Oh, I remember hearing about that. Yeah, that must have been fun. All you guys in Vegas and shit. And you're into poker, right? So you guys ever...
Yeah, I didn't play any cards there because I didn't have a lot of extra cash to play with at the moment, so I didn't do that. I played some cards over the weekend. Anthony was there. I played with some cards when
nice.
And Yeah, I didn't have a very good outing. It was I was so card dead the whole night. You know,
Yeah.
could not. I think I had two. I think I might have had two. Pairs in the hole, like the whole fucking night.
Shit, that sounds like a bad
Nice.
run. How
It
many
was
hands do you
really
think you played? Did you play like 100 hands, 150?
I'll tell you this: I played way too many hands. That's for sure. That's what
Yeah.
happens when you get shitty cards. You fucking play too many hands, and that's where I fucked up. And like you try to make these bets, that make it like, well, this is not a good call, but it didn't happen too often that I had that kind of juice sitting there money wise to chase certain people off. But I mean, like I had the winner until the river one time. That was when I really lost it. I was just like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, the river's always shitty, man. I've seen a lot of shitty rivers myself. It's funny because I used to play poker all the time. Obviously, I played a lot when I was out in Vegas. I used to play some tournaments. I've actually won some tournaments. And I'm trying to think the last time that I played, because I didn't play for a fucking long time. I went down to Jacksonville and played a tournament. It was like $150 buy-in, and I was so fucking card dead. There's nothing shittier than when you're running card dead in like a turbo style tournament. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where the blinds go up and you don't really get that much of a starting stack. Like you got to make some moves early.
Yeah. You're short stacked right away because somebody will double up on the first fucking hand. Some bullshit like that. Somebody pushes it all in with kings and loses, and then you get big stacks. And they're not afraid of anything that you. And then you're sitting there with what Jack 5 offsuit or some shit like that. And you're like, this is fucking. I can't play any of this shit.
Ugly fucking shit poker hands. I was gonna ask you. So what's Anthony like? What's it like playing poker with Anthony? Is he a good poker player? I'd imagine. You ever see him get really mad, get some real bad beats?
Nah, I've never seen him get mad about any beats or anything like that. He's a grown man, as an adult, so he acts like that.
You probably never seen him at the blackjack table, right? He used to have a pillow with Opie's face in it. And I'm going back years and years, where he would go to the casino, he'd lose like $20,000 and he'd scream into a pillow that had Opie's face in it, or he'd punch it. He used to bring
I've seen him win tens of thousands of dollars. And
nice.
I have played blackjack with him. I did go play blackjack in freaking what do you call it, in Vegas. Because we were at Bally's, just like kind of like walking around, and we found Ant sitting there playing blackjack at Bally's, and Geno was at the table and everything, and some other hangers on, and there was kind of some kind of dispute. Ant gets pissed, says a bunch of shit. He's like, because they fucked up his cards. They were making him. I don't know. It was some shit with a bet, and the dealer went out of sequence, and it really fucking pissed him off. So like he said his say, he walked off, and he's I'm going to the fucking Borgata. Followed him. Chrissy Mayer followed him too. Geno hung out. He didn't follow the boss, and he just stayed there at Bally's. We went and played cards at the Borgata, and I needed a little help. Ant helped me out. He gave me a bonus, and it's just the coolest thing ever. It was a very cool experience because I don't know anything about blackjack. Like I know what everybody knows about blackjack, but I don't know the fucking, when to do what and how.
Right.
And I learned all that. So it was really fun.
It can be a fun game, and it can be a great way to pass the time. I used to play a lot of Foxwoods. I used to go to Foxwoods in Connecticut. You ever go there?
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, Foxwoods is fucking awesome. And they had a hell of a poker room. That was where I basically started playing poker. And that and Mohegan Sun too. I was going to ask you, so how did you actually meet Anthony? Like, how did you get hooked up with Compound Media and get the job there?
Louis J. Gomez had me sit in for Big J. Ogerson when they did Legion of Skanks out at the old Compound before it moved to Manhattan. I was like, hell yeah. I was looking for somewhere to go anyway. I had been with Cave Comedy Radio doing my podcast for a long time. And that unceremoniously ended. It turned out the guy was my co-host was a bit of a closet SJW, and this was between 2011 till 2014, and that shit was just kind of swelling up a lot. So I was like, fuck that, and we ended that partnership. And Louis J. Gomez was like, yeah, this guy would be perfect for the network. So that's how I met Anthony.
That's cool. Yeah, I like Louis. Louis is fucking funny as shit.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's a hardworking guy. Good businessman, too.
Yeah. No, what he's done with Gas Digital, I mean, it's like I said, it's impressive. It's not an easy thing. And it's, you got to have balls to put yourself out there and take a risk like that. It's definitely
Well, I mean, it's no arguments here.
Yeah. I was going to ask, so recently you, Chrissy Mayer, and Stuttering John all got gigs canceled in the same week. As people may have recalled, you recently were a guest. You were a guest on Who Are These Podcasts right before this happened. And I did enjoy your appearance on there. You were funny. What I wanted to know is, what do you make of that cancellation? Has a cancellation like that ever happened to you before?
No, never. No. I've never been canceled 2 days out because of one phone call before. But that's what it was. It was one phone call that came off like a warning more than like a threat, is what I was told. It was one phone call. And then it was postponed, I guess, is what is the terminology he wanted me to use. When it was weird, man. I really didn't know the proper PR for something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I was canceled just kind of. And you know what? There's a couple of ways to look at it, a couple of different suspects or whatever. I don't know if I just, you know what? Stuttering John sent me a message saying, I see you got canceled. We could come. I'm obviously parafphrasing, when he's
I
commiserating.
actually have the screenshot. I could bring it up later if you want to talk about it. I don't know.
Oh, really? You have the screenshot? Did I send you that?
I have a bunch of. Actually, I saw that myself, so I took a few screenshots. I don't know if I had a little bit of a theory about this, a little bit of an AGTV operating theory. So I don't know if maybe I could show you some of the screenshots later. And
sure, man. Yeah, whatever you say.
I thought that seemed very odd to me, just the timing of it. It's Chrissy Mayer, who's a friend of Who Are These Podcasts. It's you, and it's Stuttering John. And I don't, it's one of those things where I don't think that I couldn't imagine that there's somebody who really enjoys Who Are These Podcasts, whereas John is such a big part of the show, where they really want to get his gigs canceled because it's a source of content. And because I'd like to think, I can't speak for everybody, and I definitely don't represent that fan base. As you know, if you're part of Opie and Anthony world, there can always be weird people involved in the fan bases. But I got the weird sense that there was somebody doing some weird shit, or that there was something about John that I thought was kind of odd. I thought John's response to that was odd. I thought that tweet to you was odd. And I was going to pull it up if you don't mind.
He DM'd me as well, and said said some similar shit. Yeah, go ahead, pull it up. I think it's odd. Okay. I think it's considering he doesn't know who the fuck I am. You'd think he would be thrilled.
So you could see this tweet right here. So this is one guy right here. I could show you some DMs. This guy, Tommy McNulty, was I believe he was posing as a fan of me and a fan of Compound. He said that he was friends with Anthony. He knew Brother Joe. He knew Don. He was trying to crawl up my ass and was DMing me, just sliding into my DM, sending me all this weird stuff. Then he tweets this at you. This is the same guy I'm talking about. Do you remember getting this tweet?
No.
Well, what I think is weird about this tweet is that this person, it seems like what they're trying to do is this is what people always say about Stuttering John. When his gigs get canceled, when his gig got canceled, people were basically saying, bullshit, John. Like, nobody canceled you. You had low ticket sales. You wanted to stir up drama. You wanted to blame it on the fan base, and you thought that would be a funny idea. So this guy is kind of projecting that onto you. I think that's a little odd. That's what makes me believe that, you know what I'm saying? That seems like something that Stuttering John or somebody in his camp would want to do. But that's just one DM. So this person,
it's one tweet.
Okay,
and
right.
I would point out that in this case, exactly what I'm describing is exactly what happened. I mean, I'd say the guy at the bucket, I don't know when to go to his name or anything, but a representative of the club didn't like that I used the word spooked. Like, I'm not afraid of anything. It's just that, so I don't know why. But, I mean, when I say spooked, I just mean like, something feels fishy about this or something like that. Sure. And, it was more like that. It wasn't so much like, oh, he's so scared. I didn't think it was like running scared. But, I mean, in a way, he didn't want any bad shit to happen. Sure. And he didn't want me to be, like, arrested on stage, which seems like I heard some reference to that.
Arrested for what?
Whatever, some incident.
Okay, but, all right.
I mean, if you read the tweet,
Sure.
But deal being that, and this was right after that, so, I don't know. Stuttering John, like I said, he's had this career. He's on the Tonight Show for a little while, and he was on Stern. A lot of people know who he is, I don't know what he commands as far. I mean, he probably asks for, a certain amount of money, right? I mean, there's some investment if you're going to bring in somebody who people have heard of, and it's on the expectation that they'll sell tickets. Now, I had sold enough tickets for the show to go on. I mean, like, I'm a ham and egger guy. I mean, like, I'm not a super famous guy. However, some people had bought tickets, and there was enough to do a show. It wasn't a huge sellout or anything like that, but tickets had been sold. And there's also then the walk-in people. There's also there's shit. There's tons of people that just don't bother buying tickets ahead of time for shit like that. Especially if it's a guy like me, a ham and egger. I will point out, I'm not a celebrity act, so like they're not expecting a guy like me to sell out the fucking place or to sell some large number of tickets on a fucking Wednesday and Thursday. That's not how comedy clubs work. So he's wrong. This was a Wednesday, Thursday thing where I'm headlining and then they bring in a Stuttering John for the weekend or whatever, and that's that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I thought it was a little fishy. Let me just bring up some other stuff too, because I have
pointing out nobody's canceling a guy like me because of lack of he didn't sell enough fucking tickets.
This is the same tweet where you had talked about how your gig had been canceled, and Stuttering John, he tweets at you, "Welcome to the club, Pat. I'm sorry that happened to you as well." Like, doesn't this tweet seem a little bit weird? And do you think liberal Stuttering John follows you on Twitter? Like, I wonder, you know what I mean?
No, I doubt it, and I doubt that he would give a fuck. I doubt he would extend a nice, hearty hand clasp, towards me because I was canceled. Welcome to the club. He'd be like, "Well, fuck you. You deserve it," right? I mean, like, let's not bullshit here.
So you're saying it seems disingenuous?
I'm saying he doesn't know me, and if he did, he'd hate me.
Right. Yeah, so it just seems weird. It's like, why would he tweet you at all?
Why is he noticing me at all? Right, exactly. How did that get around to him?
My theory is that John has been made a fool out of for so long, and I'm sure that that's got to weigh on you after a while. I'm not saying that it's not fair, because it is fair game. You're going to get criticized if you're putting shit out there in the zeitgeist or if you're a public figure. But it seems to me like I had this weird theory that he had somebody helping him make these phone calls, try to create chaos in WATP world. And I had a lot of people that were sliding into my DMs, like that Tommy McNulty guy, and they were trying to talk to me. They were trying to pretend to talk like they think that I'm this like far right extremist person. And it's like a liberal's impression of what they think a far right person talks like. You know what I mean?
It's so funny, isn't it? I love it. They're so bad at impersonating that point of view because they don't know how to think independently. So they just go, "Hey, isn't it great being racist? It's awesome. I hate minorities and gays."
Yeah, how about that racism? Nudge, nudge.
Let's go set some bombs off. Yeah,
right.
So dumb.
Because that's what we do, right? Yeah. So this Tommy McNulty guy, he's on Twitter, and he looks to me like he's trying to make himself look like this Irish looking, you know what I mean? He's like almost trying to look like a conservative guy. So anyways, the account's like from April 2022. So it's a new egg account with the 22 followers, a new egg account with 22 followers. So I get these weird messages from this guy. I'm not going to get too into the weeds with this shit because I know it's very internet-y and weird. So this guy was saying, Opie knows my name, but I can talk to him at the bar and he doesn't know who I am. Just weird type of shit.
Well, wait a second. Wait. Let's go over that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure.
Slowly. Okay, so this is a conversation between you and Tommy McNulty.
Yes.
And you say that you don't trust anybody on the internet. He says, that makes sense. I use my real name and voice online. I just don't like to associate my face to the name because that would interfere with my out-of-the-house life where I mingle with these people. And they've not all made the connection. For instance, online Opie knows the name. Well, at the bar, he's not realized I'm that guy. So at the bar, we can hang. Well, you see, this is exactly why you don't fucking trust anybody on the internet, for Christ's sake. You're snaky.
Yeah.
You're describing a snaky fucking person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, well, why would I why would I trust you? Because I think that this person thinks that I'm thirsty for information, that I'm willing to listen to whatever bullshit is sent to me anonymously on the internet. And it looked like he did a certain amount, like he put a certain amount of effort into trying to make himself seem like a real person, but there were just some clues to me. It all just seemed very odd, and he was
So what do
trying
you think
so
of
hard.
what's your theory on Tommy McNulty? Do you have one that you'd like to state yet, or are you working up to it?
I mean, it's hard for me to tell with any degree of real certainty who anybody is. How could I possibly know who controls this account on the internet? But it seems like they're trying to influence events, like they're trying to get into my DMs. And I had this
Right.
weird theory, like they were trying to make it look like WATP fans are like a hate group that wants to ruin John's life and get his gigs canceled, which is not true. People
No.
like making fun of him, and I think that a lot of people who make fun of John don't like him. They genuinely don't like him for good reason, because he's, just demonstrated a complete lack of character.
They're not trying to get in his way professionally or career wise, because that's counterproductive to what they do. They just
Right.
enjoy making fun of what he does. They're not trying to, it's when people take it to that next level of trying to like actually stop you from making a living. I mean, the less of an entity John is, the less it totally makes sense. You're killing the golden goose.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's like Karl. Karl is never, that's the thing is Karl, he makes fun of people's shows. He's never like Karl makes fun of John's show. Karl's not stopping him from making his show better. Karl's not stopping him from improving his life. Or you know what I mean? If anything, though, it's like I've had plenty of people who've criticized me. I've had people who've trolled me, made fun of me, shit on my content. And you know what? Every now and then I'll try to say to myself, maybe they may not be coming across in the nicest way, but maybe I could learn something from these people that are criticizing me. Like maybe some of what they're saying is true, because we all fight. Yeah.
There's always something to learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And really, like if it's Karl is like very direct, and he's just it's all in fun. You never hear anything hateful coming out of him. So look, it's listen to what's being said and pay attention to it. But like, it's funny how he perceives that. If John thinks like, oh, this is, or Tommy McNulty or whoever the fuck has this opinion that this is a hate group, they're trying to like take me out. First of all, calling them a hate group just because they hate you is fucking ridiculous. But if there's like some kind of career ruining army of individuals or some shit, that's the way he would approach it. And like clearly, if somebody's trying to get anybody canceled for being on the show, that's their approach. They always think that people who are conservatives are just asshole versions of them who hate black people.
Yeah, it really just gets so lazy. It gets to a point where it's just so ridiculous. So here he is, the guy, and this is before I ended up just telling the guy, hey, like it ended up being a thing where this guy ended up blocking me. Before he did, he said a lot of other weird shit. He's talking about calling Kevin. He's talking about Karl. There's this sort of joke. It's so ridiculous.
They call Karl Kevin.
Right. So here he is saying he's going to call Karl's wife. It's just fucking gay and stupid. And I don't understand exactly what he's trying to do. Sorry. I'm zooming in so I can see these. So I'm not going to like get too lost in the weeds with this stuff.
We're lost in the weeds already.
I know, right? Might as well. So yeah, so here's another, I'm behind the scenes guy. I've heard this a lot, and I've heard this a lot from a lot of accounts that have been emailing me from a year from what I believe is somebody that's associated with Stuttering John. Obviously I can't prove it, but it's like very clear patterns of they want to do shady shadow shit. But I hear this behind the scenes a lot. So it definitely comes up. Now this guy's saying that he's friends with Mersh, he's friends with everybody. I'm like, yeah, okay, dude, whatever. I don't think too much of it. But but there's some other stuff.
I don't like infiltrator type dickheads.
Yeah, it's just it's something that's I just don't understand what the need for it is. So usually when I talk to people like this, excuse me for a second, so usually when it comes to people like this, I just don't really I'm just like, hey, thanks for watching the show, thanks for being a fan, I appreciate it. And then I just kind of tune these people out. But to me, this is like somebody that's definitely trying to confuse me. Like this is definitely, it's just weird. Uses the same troll playbook. I think that they're trying to set me up. That's basically the sense that I get, right? Or that they're trying to set up the WATP fan base. And this is something else. He's posting pictures of Anthony cutting Opie's head off. It's fucking, you know what I mean? It just seems artificially weird.
Talking all over about the top.
Yeah, it's Hal Sparks gave me your phone number. Just weird shit. He's tweeting at Frank Pellegrino, and it seems like he's just trying to excuse me, sorry.
Just beating around all the fucking loose ends and edges of the fucking compound universe, trying to find a way in.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to influence. He's trying to buzz in people's ear. I don't know exactly what for. And like I said, of course, I can never say with any degree of certainty who the fuck this guy is, or, does it really matter in the end? But I just thought it's kind of interesting as it relates to
this. I'm sorry, but this direct message really cracks me up because I would only slip him info. This is him talking. He goes, I think of us being all part of a rebel front, comrades in arms. Well,
that's a little contradictory.
No, person talking without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm a sneaky comrade in arms.
Everything I know about right-wing politics, I learned from MSNBC.
Yeah.
Fuck. MSNBC. I remember when I was liberal, I used to watch MSNBC. Do you remember, have you ever watched that before? They do these polls. I remember I used to watch the Ed Schultz. Sorry, say that 5 times fast. I used to watch the Ed Schultz show, and he would do these polls every night. Do you agree? And it was this, do you agree with the liberal viewpoint? And it was always 99% of everybody was liberal.
Yeah.
90. It's okay, all right. These are Stalin numbers. Maybe you should just stop doing a poll and admit that everybody who fucking watches your network is already agreeing with you.
They're already propagandized. Yeah.
So this is when I basically realized that the guy was probably who I thought he was. So he said, I read an email of hers. He's talking about this lady who was a fan of John. I did an interview with her. And he's talking about reading people's emails. I read an email of hers and I'm like, why are you fucking reading people's emails? What are you talking about? I got an email maybe a year before of another guy who was pretending to be doing the same shit, being an anonymous dickhead, creating a fake persona to try to contact me. And they offered me access to Stuttering John's email account. I said no. The person that I thought it was, I think they were a moderator. I think they were a chat moderator of Stuttering John, who at one time, I think they controlled his social media accounts and did have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're like, oh, they're pulling this who me shit. Are you asking me if I did something underhanded? I have to reference Karl when and he's trying to act like he saw the email in my video. And I realize this is getting far away from everything, but I just basically said, dude, I know who you are. So my theory was that it was this guy named Hockey Puck. Have you ever heard of Hockey Puck?
No.
He's one of John's right-hand men. He was basically Stuttering John's chat moderator and right-hand man for some time. So then this guy ended up blocking me, and then he ended up tweeting about me right after he blocked me. And the reason I know about this was because I logged out. I logged out and I looked at his tweets. And now here he is tweeting about me and saying that I control this fake Stuttering John account. So anyways, I know this might sound like it's much ado about nothing. This is right after he blocked me, right after I said, hey dude, I know who you are. I've you know what I mean? I've gotten similar sounding messages from somebody who was pretending to be somebody else before. I know you're not a real person. So anyways, then he's pulling this crap. And like I said, my theory is that it has something to do with John. I'm not saying that this is some kind of a brilliant plan, because it's definitely not. But this is just the level of stupid. It's like Stuttering John's version of doing gay ops, but there's nothing, you know what I mean? There's nothing about it. This is one of John's ex-chat moderators who supposedly is cool with Karl and WATP. He's tagging me and this Sean guy in tweets. Do you think we should keep Stuttering John around to keep goofing on him, or should we just get him thrown in jail? And I'm like, what the fuck?
In jail for what?
Right? It's fucking and this guy used to be John's friend.
That's how they think. That's exactly how they think.
But I don't even think that this was a real I think this was he's trying to make us all, he's trying to paint us as that's why I think he's trying to make it seem like WATP fans are trying to form some kind of lynch mob, and that's
exactly they
that's not it at all.
Oh, should we try and get him thrown in jail?
Nobody talks like that.
Nobody talks like that. Exactly.
It just really speaks to their level of self-awareness. So then right after this happens, right after I start talking on the WATP Discord, I start saying to people, hey, I think I'm getting doxxed. I think it's John's moderator. I think John and Sean are working together. This guy's pretending he had a falling out with John to try to get attention from Karl, try to get on the show. And Karl knows what's up. Karl knows that the guy's fucking lying. So then after I talk about this, all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up. I get all these text messages. I get somebody threatening to dox me. They basically they do the same shit that this Sean guy did. Weird. And he did the same thing. I have it all documented with the Heather W lady. Have you ever heard about Heather W?
No.
So this right here is the person doxing me at the house that I haven't lived at in fucking like 4 years in Massachusetts. I live in Georgia now. I'm in Savannah. So
No kidding.
yeah. So I responded with his address because the funny story about that is somebody gave me his information. So I did not release that to anybody. I didn't dox him. I didn't put it in it. And I'll make sure to edit this because I don't want to dox this guy. But I was given his information and I just said to him, like, one good turn deserves another. Hey, you have my address. First of all, it's an old address that I haven't lived at in fucking years. But second of all, I have your address too, motherfucker. So what are you going to do with it? It's like anybody can dox anybody. It's actually very, very easy to dox somebody. But it's a question of like, what are you going to do with the information? And the funny thing about this is the real kicker is, sorry, this is the guy right here. I'm not going to air this part, obviously. I'm going to block out his face and stuff, but somebody gave me the information and it's somebody who, I guess I could show, I'm not going to show the guy's picture, but this is the guy just between me and you, but
Okay.
somebody who has been a guest on, they've been on Who Are These Podcasts. They were the one who gave me the information. So I believe that it's credible, but like I said, I'm not gay like that. I would never fuck with somebody. I'd never want to ruin somebody's fucking life. And even John, me and him have like a real beef. Like we had a real back and forth, but like, I don't want the guy to be like scared. You know what I mean? I don't want the guy to be like filled with fear or to like, it's a fucking goof. You know what I mean? It's a roast. It's like Anthony says, it's a roast. Keep it light, goof on people. There's no reason. Nobody's trying to bully this guy.
Okay.
This is the guy who sent me a Reddit DM basically this is the guy who doxed me right here. So he said, it wasn't hard. John has done me bad before. I emailed and called the club with a few friends and told them I would leave bad reviews and start trouble. They went ahead and canceled his gig. I will do it again and again. F you, John. My turn now.
Okay.
So this person's claiming responsibility for canceling John's gig. It seems to me like it's very likely they were the one who made the phone call about your gig and about Chrissy's gig. And I also think it's odd. You know what I'm saying? That same Tommy McNulty. Now you know what I'm talking about. You see how this kind of comes together. I know it's a lot. It's a long way to get there.
Well, it's always hard to figure out like what details are there that are going to like make this, obvious. So I get you.
Yeah.
And when there's so many of them to pull together, you go, wow. But somebody did it, and it seems like you said, the same MO each time. So I don't get it. I don't understand why anybody's trying to fuck with anybody on that level. There used to be a live and let live kind of fucking thing going on in the world. People don't do that anymore. It's social media. People have too much like free time and power to fucking, they get listened to somehow.
Yeah. But it's funny though, because I thought between the Tommy McNulty guys, basically sounding like a Stuttering John tactic. And then you get that weird cryptic tweet from John to you. To me, it's almost like they were trying to pull some shit, trying to pull some fake shit, and that they were kind of rubbing it in your face. So anyways, that was my theory. Those are my thoughts. I wanted to share that with you. I know it's a lot of, yeah, no problem. I wanted you to have a sense of like what might have been going on. That may or may not be the case, but I wanted you to have a sense of what may have explained the phone call. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that because it's fucking bullshit to have one of your gigs canceled. I mean, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? They're not going to keep doing this kind of shit. But to me, it just, whoever's doing it, it's really fucking low.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is low. It's really low. Yeah.
It
has nothing to do with anybody. It has nothing to do. That's just sheer fucking, like I said, too much power.
And it seems desperate too, which is what part of the thing that really gave me that weird gut feeling that John had something to do with it. But I really didn't want to get too much into the DMs and stuff like that. But I received a ton of messages from a lot of people. And the only time that I get those type of messages are right after, I drop a bombshell about John, right after I got my channel restored, started making videos about John again. All of a sudden I get all these fucking messages. And then when I talked to that Heather lady, all of a sudden, all these messages, and it couldn't be more obvious, who's motivated to do that. Cause nobody else, you know what I mean? My show is so small now, and it was definitely small before then. It's like, I always thought to myself, nobody watches, nobody cares. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm small enough where it's obvious. It's obvious like where the source of all this bullshit is coming from. So anyways, I didn't want to get too lost in the weeds with that. I know it's a lot of explanation, but that's my theory about it.
Dude,
and
you know your audience and what they want to see and hear and stuff. So I mean, like if you got this case to present, by all means, I'd be presented to me. I don't mind a bit.
Oh yeah, well I appreciate it. I definitely edit it down so it's not too long. But what I wanted to know is, as somebody who lives in New York City, are you from there? Did you grow up in New York?
No, I didn't grow up here. No, I grew up down in like Georgia or Tennessee or fucking Mississippi, wherever the fuck I'm from.
Oh, cool. Where in Georgia? Are you military family?
Mm-mm,
From a military family?
mm-mm. Just down south.
Oh, cool.
That's
Where
kind of
about?
like just generally just down south is like about as specific as I really get without. I mean, call it Tennessee. Whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I actually went to the WATP live show in Nashville. I had never been to Tennessee before. I couldn't believe how gorgeous it was out there. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
Nashville was really fucking cool too.
yeah. The Northeast kind of sucks compared
Well,
to it.
especially now too. But just the weather. I mean, there's some really good spots down south. I love it. I go to South Carolina a lot because I'm in Savannah. I'm in the Savannah area, so I go to
Right.
Hilton Head Island a lot, and it really is fucking beautiful down here.
Very rich area. Yeah.
Yeah, we're about 2 hours drive from the Florida state line. When you lived in Georgia, did you live in Savannah area or like rural?
No, I lived in the Atlanta area more.
And Atlanta was nice too. I drove through Atlanta on my way up to Tennessee, and I had never been there before, and I was expecting it to be this big war zone. And I heard it's funny because I feel like people in Savannah, they act like Atlanta's like New York City, like it's this big scary. But I thought it was awesome. I really liked it up there.
Atlanta's friendly, and
Yeah.
so it's not as friendly as Tennessee, Chattanooga. Those kind of places are great.
Right. And I saw the Chattanooga Choo Choo too, so that was pretty cool. When
Oh
I was
yeah,
in
Comedy Catch is there. Comedy Catch is one of the greatest clubs in the whole Southeast, and it's really it's been around a long time. It's really one of the longest running clubs in the country, and I love going to perform there. I mean, I did a lot of comedy there starting out, and I hope to do a lot more before they hang it up.
Well, I know
If they
that
were to-
living in New York's got to be challenging, especially with all the crime, just all the crazy shit going on. What is it that makes you want to stick it out and stay in New York?
I mean, nothing really. I mean, it's just like there's an inertia to it. You stay where you are. I've been in New York for 16 years, and I don't really have, doing the podcast. I guess New York City Crime Report. I've been doing it since 2011. So I mean, like 12. I'm in the 12th season of doing it, and it's free. New York City Crime Report. That's what I was doing before I came to Compound, and then I started doing it there, and it kind of evolved into a crime report thing that was about more than just New York City crime. But New York City is the only subject that I talk about in that podcast, and that's free on iTunes, and you can get the video version of it on the Locals NYC crimereport.locals.com. A lot of other shows there too, so I hope people get a chance to check it out. You can follow, you can also support. I love doing the free one though. I hope everybody will subscribe to it because it's a show. It's the one I started out doing. It's what I still consider to be like the mothership kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, it's definitely great. I think it's a great idea for a show, especially where there's so much crime that you don't see it covered. It doesn't seem like it's covered honestly. It seems like they choose what they cover.
Yeah,
When it comes to
cover it in
crime.
a very disingenuous political way, 9 times out of 10, and like we cover it in a really irreverent way, but we don't lie. Everything's the truth. It's like we might make some jokes. Yeah, of course we make jokes. It's like reading the New York Post with punchlines is basically the way I like to describe the show. So you're right. The honest news coverage and analysis and stuff is tough to find.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I was going to ask you about something. I don't know if you can talk about this, but I was going to ask you, there's been a lot of talk about the incident between you and Geno Bisconte. Can you tell me about that or what led up to that and how that might have ended up kind of panning out with everything that's going on now?
I don't know. Geno had he had a problem with me that I was completely unaware of. Like I had no idea. And then I hear people say that, like, oh, he's been talking shit about you for months, and no clue. So, everything came as sort of a surprise to me. I had no idea. And he certainly never talked to me about it. We crossed paths plenty. I always spoke to him in like a very, there's a certain kind of fraternity among comedians, especially comedians who've been doing it for a long time. And I always just spoke to him in reference to that. I had no idea. Like, I'm not somebody who really gets on a show that I'm on and spends that time to, like, talk about something internal. That's just not really my style. I mean,
Right.
a lot of people do things like that. I don't. And it never really occurred to me that anything like that might be going on. So, I mean, in terms of like what led up to everything, fuck, dude, it's kind of a mystery to me, but I have no problem with losing my job there, over what happened. Completely fine, understandable. People had to make decisions. And that's a decision that got made, and fine, But I don't do any sort of, I don't know, like post talk about. I'm not trying to do a bunch of like, look,
Sure.
there was a whole bunch of shit that I thought people needed to understand like right away. Okay, I mean, people want, there's a natural need to like try to make something understood or something like that. And at this point, there's been so much vitriol, coming from a certain, segment of the compound world listenership, whatever you want to call it, that like I can't address all the shit that's not true that's being said. It's impossible.
Sometimes it's exhausting too.
Oh, it just leads to more impossible shit. I mean, impossible to like clear up stuff. It's just more nonsense that's thrown around, and you know what? I never imagined that it would be that big of a fucking deal. I thought it seemed like a pretty natural thing to me. So, apparently some people take that shit. And I'm not talking about Geno, but uninvolved people take it really fucking hard. And they want to take a side, and all right, that's their right. But, like, I'm not, I'm not, whatever it is they're seeing, that's not me. They're seeing somebody who, they're just against, and okay, have it your way.
Well, it seems to me like Anthony genuinely likes both of you guys. I know that a lot of people like to bust Geno's balls, myself included, because I mean, I think it's funny. I think Geno's kind of a character, but I don't know if like that. I was always wondering if that's something that maybe deep down, you think maybe that might be kind of starting to frustrate him a lot with the fact that he gets trolled so incessantly by Red Bar. Mike David of Red Bar, you're familiar with him?
Yeah. Heard of him. And I have some familiarity with him, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure that even to the most experienced comic, you've dealt with hecklers, you've dealt with people saying stupid shit online, you deal with, like you said, the misperceptions about you or your views or your character or whatever. So I'm sure that like that's the kind of thing that maybe can contribute to that sort of frustration. Do you think that that's a little bit of a factor with Geno? Do you think that maybe he's been a little bit stressed out?
No idea. I have no idea. I mean, I know that there was a fissure there between him and Aaron Berg, his co-host.
Oh yeah, I heard
Aaron
all about
left,
that.
It was a lot of pressure, maybe on doing the new show. I know that he felt he seems to have felt a certain level of betrayal. I've certainly sympathized with that feeling if he went through some painful emotions with that. I think those are on display. I mean, I don't even think that's really up for debate. He never spoke to me personally about that, but I mean, on his show, you see elements where he speaks to that, he did anyway, like previously with some frequency. So obviously that, there was some strain there.
I saw the clips with him and Kevin Brennan when he did the last In Hot Water, and it seemed like him and Kevin Brennan were kind of going at it. And that's the thing I like about Kevin is like he's somebody where he doesn't really mince words, but I just thought it was interesting to see the two of them kind of, because I saw
and Brennan.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it. Well,
awkward.
I remember there's a clip that was floating around of I think it was Geno and Bill Schultz are on the couch while Kevin's doing a show with his co-host at the time, that blind guy, Brian, I think his name is. And Brian can't talk. And there is a certain element where you're trying to do a certain thing, you're trying to do a show, you're trying to do something pretty standard, and you can't do it because of an interruptive presence on the show, a loud presence on the show, sort of a, somebody who just makes it hard to interact with other people in any kind of meaningful way, to get your own shit in. You know what I mean? You're just trying to talk, and it can be very frustrating. And Brian kind of lost it. I mean, I've made reference to that before, and I don't think that Geno took that particularly well. I think he was talking about it. Never occurred to me to talk about that afterwards. It's just like that's a momentary thing. It's like, yeah, this is obvious, that like sometimes appearing on a show, trying to do jokes or whatever, talk or like whatever it is you're trying to do is thwarted by interruptions and volume and shit like that. That's just an incompatibility in terms of guests or panel or whatever you want to call it. You're kind of making me swim upstream an awful lot here, for some reason, and I don't think that that's anything to be upset about. It's just fucking some shit that happened, whatever. So I know the dynamic between him and Kevin. Kevin was just telling him to get the fuck out of the studio, go on, leave, and he's like, well, what? And he doesn't immediately, and there's some yelling back and forth and shit. Kevin does, ask for what he wants and say what he feels and shit like that. It's an interesting thing to observe. And so I didn't see the show you're talking about, but I kind of get the dynamic.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the things that makes Kevin great is that he's just got no filter. I think that his podcast seems like it's gotten much better. I felt like a year ago, like Kevin seemed like he was a little frustrated a year ago. And I don't know if it's because he redid his set. I don't know if this was recently that he redid the set for his podcast. He got new equipment. It seems like he's got a new lease on life with it. He seems like he's kind of figured things out a little more. And I think the fact that I don't know if he controls that Misery Loves Clips channel, but he's got a Clipper or it's him. But I think that's a smart idea now if you're doing a show on YouTube or wherever you are, whether it's behind a paywall. I think it's a smart idea to put clips up there. I know Red Bar did it. Anthony did it. And I think that's definitely a good way to kind of get more people to come.
Absolutely. It's a great advertisement for it's just a little bite and people watch it. And especially if you've got something kind of controversial, people respond to that. I totally get what you're saying. It's something that I've been meaning to do more of. And people clip my shows and stuff too. Sometimes I always like that and appreciate it. I try not to ever say anything that I'm going to want taken down. You know what I mean? I try not to say anything that I'm ever going to be ashamed of saying or that I have to, defend. It always seems to me like if you just, kind of be careful, not careful, but just like precise in what you say as much as possible. Look, I mean, I'm just trying to be just doing entertaining things if possible. Sometimes it's in some contexts it's harder than others. But about Kevin, I think the set is more of a reflection of his mindset than something that causes it, right? It's not like you have a new set, you're like, oh yeah, now I have a new lease on life. I think it's probably that he's sort of manifested the set, the set's a manifestation of his mindset. And I think that he's like fucking great. I've always been a big Brennan fan. I've always liked his comedy. I think he's really fucking funny. I think he's by far the funniest Brennan. And I know more than one other one. Like I used to play cards with his other brother.
Oh, Neil?
No, Danny.
Oh, okay.
Just a guy who, he's not even fucking famous. He's not even a comic. But I used to play cards with him in a weekly game for quite a while. I was in that game for like 12 years, 13 years. He's a good guy, but I mean, my favorite is if we have to have a favorite Brennan, there's no comparison between Kevin and Neil.
Who's the biggest card shark though? When you played, it sounds like you played a lot of card games with Anthony Cumia. Who would you say out of that group? Who's like the one to really watch out for at the poker table?
By the way, Cumia that's something I didn't address before in talking about playing cards with Cumia. He's hilarious is the bottom line. He laughs the loudest at everybody's jokes and he makes the funniest statements. He's just the funniest fucking guy to hang out with. And, he's obviously the guy everybody's trying to fucking make laugh, So he's the center of that. He's the king. In terms of but he's also just there playing cards like everybody else. Now, there is one dude who plays really fucking good, besides me. And, I was sitting next to him the other day. I'm not trying to blow him up or anything, because, like, he's not a performer. He's not a public figure in any way. But there is a dude, yeah. They're all pretty good. It's like, there's nobody who just sucks. I wish there was. But they played together a long time, too. They know each other, so... it's fun to watch these rundowns and stuff. There is this It's all characters, man. We can't get into everybody's fucking shit.
Sure.
But there's some funny dudes there.
Do you guys play No Limit Hold'em? Do you play mixed games? Do you play any other type of like? You ever play PLO or anything like that?
I would love to play PLO. They wouldn't be into it. They're Hold'em straight up. That's it, and it's no limit 1-2. That's
Nice.
all I've ever played there. Yeah, and it's a friendly game, of course.
Yeah, that's my game. I do miss playing cash games. I mean, I suck at it. I'm definitely better at playing tournament poker, but I've had more of my success at tournament poker. But there's something about playing cash that I find so exciting. And I remember one time spending 21 hours at a 1-2 table at Mohegan Sun. I only like took little breaks to go like smoke pot and go to the bathroom and stuff like that. But it was pretty cool. It was like one day I wanted to live the fantasy of like being a professional poker player. And it's fun to sit at a poker table all day, but it was like at the end of the day, I felt like I just put myself through some kind of an ordeal. It was.
You feel like garbage, don't you? Just feel like, God, I am trash. I've played all night at Atlantic City and get a bus back at 10:30 in the morning, just going like, oh God.
Yeah.
So I do not feel like a good person right now. I am, for me, like I don't really go to lose a lot, and I don't go to win a lot, but I'm also not going to stay and just grind forever either. So like, I'm not really ideal for casino playing. That's one of the games that I played in forever, that I played in for a long time, which I got kicked out of for not getting vaxxed, by the way.
Really?
So fuck them, kind of. You know what I mean?
What casino? Tell me about it.
Wasn't a casino. It was a fucking home game. Where all these guys apparently,
They're
thought
checking
that
your
was
fucking Vax card at a home game. That doesn't sound very friendly to me.
not very friendly. No, it was friendly all these years, but I mean, it was a dealer's choice game, and there were a certain number of games that we would play, and Omaha was one of them. But it was a limit game, and a 3-raise limit. So it was a quarter minimum, $2 maximum, 3-raise limit game. That you'd bring $60 to, and you'd play all fucking night. And I've won as much as like close to $400, and I've lost, similar early on when I didn't know how the fuck to play. A lot of these games are kind of complex, but they're not like fucking, it's not like wild cards galore and shit like that. I'd really like to get another game going like that. That game was fucking fun.
Yeah,
nobody gives a shit about this. Surely nobody's still watching this, right?
No, I'm not live.
About my card game.
I'm not live, but I'm going to edit it down and post
Please
it to my
do.
channel. So yeah,
edit all this out.
Well, I friggin' suck live off the cuff, so I really appreciate you're bearing with me because I.
No, man, not at all. You're great.
No, I appreciate
you're
it.
You're doing a great job with the interview. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on for sure. My last question I was going to ask you is about what you think the future is for Compound Media with Anthony going to South Carolina. And obviously there's going to be some change ups with the show lineups and stuff like that too.
My show not being there is not going to impact Anthony's fan base at all. Not really. I don't think. I can't imagine that either of the shows that I was doing or both are going to like really, Cumia's got an audience forever, and he deserves it. He's earned it, and he's a legend. And like, I foresee zero impact on that. I think that, look, I mean, when he goes to South Carolina, what I was told is that the studio just keeps going in New York, and that he'll be down in South Carolina doing his show, and everybody lives happily ever after. I mean, so that's, as far as I know, that's the plan.
Well, I think it might be kind of cool. It might be kind of reminiscent of the early days when he did the Compound live from the Compound from his house in Long Island. Do you think maybe that's something he would want to do, kind of go back to basics? And I mean, he could still go up to New York and make appearances in the studio. He doesn't sound like he's ruled that out.
Oh, I'm sure he will. And I'm sure it'll be a great moment, when he's in the studio, he'll be like, oh my God, the boss is here, right? It'll kind of like make that a little rare, and that's cool. And I think people will dig it. And I think that, yeah, he'll have both now. He'll have the studio in New York. Really, when you look at it, it's not like diminishing. It's an expansion, if anything, because now down south, it's like, conquer new worlds, go down and find new places to make your shit sink in even more. There's a lot of O&A fans down south, and a lot of Anthony Cumia fans down south. So
for sure, yeah.
I think, and I know that he likes where he's going. So
South Carolina is beautiful. It's God's country out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. He could fire the whole fucking lot of of them, I think, and do his show and just live happily ever after. I even asked him about that the other day. I was like, why did you fuck with us? You know, because I mean, you've got your audience. Why not just talk to them? Why did you? He goes, I wanted to help people fucking, you know, give people platforms who had no place to go and or who maybe had, you know, undiscovered, underappreciated stuff like that. That's awesome. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it was really just, you know, something to do to, you know, keep influencing and keep helping people that he thought, you know, were interesting enough to deserve help. I can't emphasize enough how much he helped me. It changed my fucking life. You know, exposed me to a whole new fan base that you know, he basically took his huge group of fans and said, "Hey, check this guy out," and it paid me for it, for Christ's sake. You know,
That's
for
great,
7 years.
man. That's great. And you know what? He's definitely helped Karl's career a lot. I know that Karl basically said that before he did the Opie episode, which got him the attention of the Opie and Anthony fan base. And then Anthony ended up retweeting. He ended up checking out Karl's show and he liked it. So after that, Karl got a huge boom. And before that, Karl was saying he was actually thinking about giving the show up because he was just putting too much effort into it and it wasn't really paying off. And sometimes you just need the right person to notice you. You just need the right person to share your shit for you to find the audience. You never know. Your audience is out there somewhere. You just got to figure out how to get them to notice you, you know?
And likely it's a bunch of little audiences too. A bunch of,
Sure.
you know, like, and a bunch of little ones, some big ones, some bigger ones, some, you know, there's pockets everywhere of people that, and Compound really is about 1/10 as big as it really deserves to be and should be, because there's so many people who agree and so many people who like that kind of humor who just aren't aware of it at all. And I'd love to see it get the kind of promotion that it deserves. I think it's probably as big as Ant wants it to be. You know, he's very much about doing the show, and if he's anything like me, he hates marketing shit and even thinking about stuff like that. And you know, you never know when you spread into other areas how it's going to affect, you know, the who's going to hear about what, and now who's bothering you all the time and shit. So I mean, I get it. You know, it could be like there's a comfort in just in talking to the people that, you know, are really into it, and hopefully they hear, you know, what's going on. Hopefully all the people find out. It could be fucking. It's just like, I don't believe that Joe Biden got 81,000 votes or whatever, 81 million votes.
No.
So I think we're living in a world where, like, you know, the mainstream looks a lot more like Compound Media than people realize.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. So what's next for you? Do you have any plans on getting on any other platforms, or maybe doing a different type of show somewhere else?
I don't know. I don't want to talk about exactly what might be in the works, but, you know, I've talked to a couple of people, of course, and we'll see, you know, how it pans out. I think it looks positive.
So, hey, I want to say I really appreciate your coming in, Pat. I enjoyed your appearance on WATP. Would love to see you back on there soon. And I'd definitely love to have you back on the show sometime. You're welcome to come back on anytime. Do you have anything that you'd like to plug?
I put out a lot of stuff on locals. It's like even before anything happened with Compound, I was putting out a great deal of stuff. And I never did stop doing my original podcast either since 2011. So there's that. I do a liberal kind of mocking show, rather, Too Woke to Fuck. And that's out there for free as well. It's the number 2, and then the word woke, and then the number 2, and an F, Too Woke to F, on iTunes or wherever the fuck you get it. And, you know, Late as Fuck is another show I do, Late AF with Douglas Nelson. I do RWI, Reasonably Well Informed, with Al Pontillo, and other stuff. I'm really proud of what's on the locals, and if anybody wants to find out more about me, they can go there. It's it's NYC crimereport.locals.com. Love to have you follow. Love to have your support. I have a YouTube channel, and always would love to have people watching on there and stuff as well. That's, you know, to search my name and channel and Pat Dixon NYC or something like that. But it's out there. And, you know, my most important thing, I would love for people to subscribe to the New York City Crime Report with Pat Dixon on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shit. I'm really enjoying doing what I do now. It's fantastic. And I'm available to do comedy. Anybody who's got $300, I'll show up.
Nice. That's good to know. was gonna say, if somebody pays you $300, will you show up at Stuttering John's gig? Maybe you could have him open for you.
Hey man, you know what?
Have you
I
seen
never
his
say
comedy?
never.
Have you ever seen John's stand-up comedy? You guys reacted to it on WATP, right?
Very limited amount, yeah, very limited amount. I don't get into. I don't get into. I really don't watch a lot of stand-up, to be honest.
I remember Jim Norton saying that because he didn't really want to be influenced by it too much. Thank you so much, Pat, for coming on. I really appreciate your agreeing to do the interview. It was great talking to you, and you're welcome back on here anytime, man. I'd love to have you back.
Thanks, Adam.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, dude. I appreciate it. Have a good one, man.
You too.